Welcome to the only show bringing cops and the community together for some real talk and some real listening. This is uncut. This is uncensored. This is Black and Blue Live. Welcome everybody to Black and Blue Live. How you doing out there?
Welcome,
Hey, Lizzie.
welcome.
Yeah, what's going on with you?
We here. I'm just excited. We have a wonderful show today, a wonderful conversation, I should say. I'm excited. A little out of breath, chasing a dog, running up some stairs. 40 years old and cardio just ain't blending the way it used to. Getting old, bro.
You good though. You got to take care of. You got to take care of.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So we're gonna have a good conversation today. We got some three awesome gentlemen here that's gonna help out with the show here. We were supposed to have one more guest. Hopefully he'll show up here momentarily, but if not, we still got three good guests for you. My name is Dale. I'm the host of the Black and Blue Podcast. That's Elizabeth there. She's the co-host. And we got some three gentlemen. Yeah, we got three gentlemen here I want to introduce to you. So let's get right to it. Our first guest here. He is a 33-year veteran of the Sacramento Police Department out here in California. Everybody, please help me welcome in Chief Daniel Hahn.
Welcome, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. How you doing, sir?
I'm very good. Very good.
Thank you for joining us.
I like that shirt.
Thank you.
Yes. And our next guest here, he is a 28-year veteran of the Carrollton Police Department out in Texas. Everybody, please help me welcome in Chief Derek Miller. Afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Excellent.
Good.
What are you doing out there in Texas?
Man, trying to hold it down. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, all those X's out there in Texas, right?
No comment.
We getting in there already. All right. I didn't know. Y'all gave us a whole lot of rope.
Oh, no. Hold up now. The wife's watching this. Hold up. Anyway, next one here, he is a 29-year veteran of the San Gabriel Police Department out here in California. Everyone, please help me welcome in Chief Gene Harris.
Welcome, welcome.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Glad to be a part of it all.
All right. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here today. We're going to talk about what's going on in our world today here in California, Texas, and all places in between. But before we get to that, I want to let everybody know that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. So make sure you send in those comments and questions for our guests. We'll see if we can get those comments on and see if they can answer those for you. All right. So like I said, we want to talk about some things going on in our world. But before we get into that, let's talk about who you are individually, and then we'll talk about your department and what got you into law enforcement. So let's start with you, Chief Hahn. Tell everybody who you are, how long you've been there, and of course you're the chief, but what got you into law enforcement?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I'm Daniel Hahn. I was born and raised here in Sacramento. I've lived here all my life. I actually got into law enforcement by accident, and I had never dreamed or even thought of being a police officer. I originally got recruiters came by a college class, and I wish I could tell you I joined because I wanted to change the world and all that, but it was $5 an hour more than I was making at the mall at the time when I was 18 years old. And so my whole plan was to join the police department as a community service officer and finish college and then quit the police department once I finished college. But then they offered to promote me a couple of years later to police officer, which was another raise. I still planned on quitting. But eventually I decided what we did and what I did as a police officer I wanted to do. And 33 years later, now I'm the police chief.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for your service, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. Chief Miller, tell everybody who you are, what you do, how long you've been there with your department, and where it's at, and how you got into law enforcement.
Well, appreciate it. I'm Derek Miller. I've been here in Carrollton Police Department for 28 years. Carrollton is a suburban city of Dallas, Texas. Unlike Daniel, I felt like I was called to the profession from a young age. I was one of those kids who who looked up to police officers and wanted to make a difference, and have not wanted to do anything else since then. And I've been here ever since. Started as a reserve cop here while I was in college. Had no intention of working here at the Carrollton Police Department. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and 28 years later, here I am sitting in the chief's office.
All right.
All right.
And yeah, where is Carrollton?
So Carrollton, like I said, is a suburb of Dallas. We're on the north side of Dallas. It's a 37 square miles. We have about 137,000 residents. Carrollton is uniquely situated close to DFW Airport, so we have a lot of major highways and toll roads that run through our town. So it's a place where people want to live, work, and play, and we stay busy. And it's a great place.
All right. Glad to have you on. Thank you for your service. Yeah.
I'm gonna start shopping for a house now.
Come on, man.
Wow.
Come on.
Do y'all have good barbecue?
We do, and we were talking about
you had
that.
to go there.
I know you have good barbecue.
In
Gotta
fact,
eat right.
Yes, right. In fact, we had the best barbecue. You should come down.
Oh, it's out there now.
Wait, now can you compete with St. Louis though?
Okay.
Kansas City.
I would just say it's a different type of barbecue. We have good Texas barbecue and St. Louis is two different things.
Right. Okay. All right. And last but certainly not least, Chief Gene Harris, tell everybody who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing, and what brought you into law enforcement.
All right, but first I got to challenge that barbecue thing. You know, my father's side of the family is from St. Louis, and they do it up. So I won't say it's better than Texas, but it's pretty good. So thanks for having me on. As you said, my name's Gene Harris. I've been in law enforcement now for about 29 years. I've had the opportunity to do service or be service oriented my entire life. My father was a Marine. My mother was a civilian attached to the Air Force through her company. And so there was a kind of a history of service in the family. And I went to the Marine Corps when I was 17. And then as soon as I got out of there, I joined the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So for me, I've had an opportunity to work for a very large agency with the LA County Sheriff's Department, a medium-sized agency with the Monterey Park Police Department, and then a little bit smaller agency working for San Gabriel as chief now. So I've been the chief there for about a little over 4 years. And it's been a ride. It has definitely been a ride. So looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Yeah, they threw you right into the fire over there. What's going on in our world today? So Lynn Taylor on Facebook says, yes, the Texas barbecue is off the chain. So
Thank
got a
you,
little
Lynn.
challenge here. A little
I
challenge
feel
here
you,
for
man.
you.
I feel you.
Yeah. Where is San Gabriel?
It is 4.5 miles outside of downtown Los Angeles, right off of the I-10 corridor. So right outside of downtown, north of what might be considered South Central Los Angeles. So,
Okay. And how large is your department?
again, we're a small department. We are 57 sworn and 70 employees total, not including volunteers. So it's definitely an experience.
Yeah, definitely smaller. How large is your department, Chief Miller?
I have 179 police officers and total 234 employees.
And Chief Hahn, yours is a little bit larger. How large is your department?
Well, we're smaller than we used to be, but we're about 750 officers and 300 or 400 professional staff.
Yeah. In Sacktown, you're up there in Sacktown. I didn't put the graphic up on the screen of where you are in relation to where Lizzie and I are. You all the way up there in Sacramento, and we all the way down here in Southern California. But
Yeah, everybody knows where
you.
Sacramento is, so you know.
I
you
wouldn't
don't
say
really
everybody,
need you don't need a map.
I wouldn't say everybody, but I don't know if Chief Miller knew where that was, but
Out west.
yes, out west. All right. We thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you. So we wanted to talk about, leadership and how it is shaping leaders of today, how it is working in your departments, mentors who helped you come up through the ranks and stuff like that. So why don't we talk a little bit about that real quick? How did you know that you had what it took to become a leader in your organization? I know it was a steady progression of promotions, but how did you know that you can get into chiefing?
I didn't think I would ever be sitting in this office. For me, at every position I held, I wanted to make a difference. I was either frustrated with something, wanted to be a field training officer, then wanted to wanted to run a shift and wanted to become a sergeant. I was a sergeant for 12 years of my career, and then just wanted to continue to make changes to make our police department better. And so I aspired to do that, and the only way I could think of doing that was going up the chain. It was a tough road to hoe for me because it's a very competitive place where I am, and you have to test for every position, and it was difficult. So I made it all the way to commander, and then was fortunate enough to get appointed to assistant chief, and was there for a couple of years, and then opportunity knocked on the door, and I was able to make chief. I was the only officer in the history of my police department to come up through the ranks. Most the preceding chiefs all came from the outside, mostly from Dallas, and so it was a great honor for me to come up to the ranks. So I'm very proud of that.
All right, congratulations.
Do you find that coming up from the ranks that you had any challenges in terms of adjusting in that place of leadership, and now some of the people who were comrades or co-laborers, if you will, that's my churchiness, the co-laborers in the ministry, did you find that adjusting to that, or were there any obstacles or issues that for those who are looking and transitioning to places of leadership that you would give advice or anything you care to share?
It was when you're an internal chief, and my experience has been there are still people in the organization who remember you as you were when you were a cop and as you were when you were a sergeant. So as you try to make policy and promulgate policy and make directives, there's always some old head that will say, I remember when you did X, Y, or Z. And so that's difficult. And I'll tell you, in my particular situation, when I came in to Carrollton, I was the second African-American officer here. And so at every rank that I attained, I've been a first the entire time. So I've had to deal with those obstacles, and then the obstacles of the job. My advice would be, if you have a goal, don't let anyone tell you that you can't accomplish it. That you should put your nose to the grindstone and continue to work on it, because you can make it if you put your mind to it. I know that's trivial, but it's true.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chief Harris.
I guess I'll field the next one. In my case, I always knew that I wanted to be that interesting story. When I left the sheriff's department, got hired at Monterey Park Police Department, when I sat in front of the chief during my oral interview, he gave me a hypothetical, and he sat back and he said, you just won the Monterey Park Police Department lottery, and you could have any job you want. What job do you take? And it took me about 5 seconds to tell him to get out of my chair. So that's how I put it down. But the whole thing was, after he finished picking himself up off the floor laughing at me, he figured out that I was committed, and I made sure to validate with him that I was committed to doing whatever I needed to do to get there. And so we sat, and I had a steno pad that I still have today, and I asked him, how is it that I can get to your seat? What do I need to do? And he laid out the blueprint, and I had an orange and a yellow highlighter. Yellow meant it was in progress. Orange meant it was done. And then I was going to come back to him however many years later and say, hey, I've gotten everything done. What's the next step? So that worked out. Unfortunately for me, I think that in my becoming a chief, I had a little different experience than Chief Miller, in that I came to San Gabriel from the outside. So I knew nobody when I got there. And I was bringing with me whatever I had learned, my experiences and all those things with me to San Gabriel. And I was coming into a place that had the same chief for 26 years.
Oh, wow.
Prior to him, they had this, the prior chief was there for 20 years. So it was 46 years of the same chief philosophy, growing up inside and so on. So I was definitely an outsider. So I had some significant challenges with that. The challenge of knowing my history, and those things didn't exist, but certainly challenging me and challenging my history and what the changes I wanted to make and those kind of things became significant for me. So it was intense.
Do you, and I know Chief Hahn, you're going to jump in on this. My question is, for those that are in law enforcement or looking, you had an opportunity, Chief Harris, to talk to someone who was willing to see you as valid, whether they believed your gumption or not to do it, and talk and lay that plan out. How do you navigate when they don't even see you being valid to be at the table, or or you don't have the ability to have that mentorship, would you recommend for those upcoming leaders on how to better navigate those fields?
Well, I think that the responsibility is on the person wanting to make the change, at least the bulk of the responsibility. We're going to talk about a whole myriad of things today, but I think the bulk, for me, it's effort and value. I had to put myself in a position where I want to make somebody think, how do I not promote this dude? How do I not promote this cat? All right, this guy has gone out here. He's worked harder than everybody else. He brings effort and value to the agency. My philosophy was, if you have one, I'm going to get two. If you have a master's degree, I'm going to get two master's degrees. If you went to the FBI Academy, I'm going to go to that one, Command College, and anything else I can put my name on. And so I was motivated to make sure that there was no reason that I couldn't get there that I had control over. So I made sure what I had control over, I maximized. And my mom used to tell me a lot of stuff. When in my book, The Zero Stress Zone, we talk about my mother a lot. The bottom line was, she says, you was poor and you didn't even know it, because we found ways to try to make ourselves get to where we needed to get. And we took that upon ourselves. So I think that's a big deal.
Thank
Love
you.
that. Love that. VVV on Facebook says, Chief Han, you look so young. So what was it like to be a young leader, especially in your field? What barriers, conflicts, or pushback from older officers?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that or the first question?
That all of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate her saying I'm young, because sometimes I don't feel too young. But I grew up in a neighborhood that didn't too much care for police officers, so it never crossed my mind to be a police officer. Nobody in my family are officers. No friends of mine were officers growing up. So, like I said earlier, I spent the first probably 7-8 years of my career planning to leave the police department once I graduated from college. And unfortunately, I took the 9-year road to graduating with a bachelor's degree, so it took me a while, but I was working full time that whole time. So I'll tell you, even though I didn't want to be on the police department after I graduated, I had a blast when I first came on. I was 19 years old when I graduated the academy. I was a community service officer, probably making more money than any of my friends, and work was fun. But I was, once I became an officer, I was also one of those officers that said, I'll never be one of them, meaning a supervisor. Like they were the ones trying to get us in trouble all the time. So, as long as I'm on the department before I graduate, I'm just going to be an officer. I did a lot of different jobs. I got a teaching credential, taught in high school for 3 years as an officer, was a neighborhood police officer. So I was having for the most part, a good time. But after I decided to stay on the police department, I had a couple mentors on the department that just kept harassing me to take the test. And even before, just like before I got on the police department, people like my mom and other folks that believed in me more than I believed in myself, they were kind of that way. And one thing led to the other, and started taking tests really to get them off my back. But then the pride kicks in. You don't want to be the last on that list. So you start studying. And one thing I would say to everybody listening, and what I say to all kids in schools when I speak to them, is you never know who's watching. So that's when the city manager of Roseville called when I was a captain. I was in my early 40s, so I had no idea I wanted to be a police chief. Definitely not at that time. And Roseville is a suburb about 15 miles east of Sacramento. And they've never had a Black officer on their department ever, much less a police chief. And so eventually I applied and became the first officer and first Black police chief in Roseville. And fortunately, 6.5 years later, people in Sacramento wanted to bring me back. And so my hometown came and brought me back. And so now I'm police chief in the town I've lived in my whole life.
All right. How long you been chief there?
A little over 3 years.
All right. Congratulations. Thank you for joining in on that, getting back home and chiefing where you grew up. So I appreciate that. I'm sure you do. I'm sure the family does too. So it's all good.
I don't know if I ever answered Vivi's question. Is that
Well,
what
I
you're
was
going
going to come back to that because
Okay.
you all had mentioned whether it was wanting to always be a law enforcement officer or growing into that, or kind of like, I mean, not really, but I'm here because it became a passion and I understood the mandate of that. But it didn't come without barriers or hurdles. What were some of the significant hurdles, and what did you do to overcome it? I know there's always, we talk about the I guess the community bank of trust, but how does that work within your agencies in terms of building that rapport and that legitimacy with your officers that you're leading? What were some of the things you did, whether you were trying to institute cultures of change or you were just trying to build that rapport so that they trusted your leadership? What are those strategies you implemented or found useful in your journey in law enforcement?
Okay, I'll go and I'll try to answer in this question, Vivi's question too. So her question was pushback from the older officers. Yeah, I think that's right now, I say pretty frequently that we're in a battle right now for hearts and minds of not only the community, but of our own officers. We have a very young department right now. Mass retirements and a lot of hiring have led to a very young department. And a lot of the older officers, especially the retired officers, there's several of them that want to comment about the good old days and how the way we're doing it now isn't good, and we should do it like the good old days. And they like to put this on social media and comment and send me letters and anything you can think of. So that's challenging. But what I do, I believe 100%. In my heart and my mind, so nothing's going to detract from that. But yeah, I think it does influence people that are viewed as having experience and veterans. Our younger people listen to, and so that is a challenge when you see so much change in law enforcement and so much change that needs to be done. And there's some people that just keep trying to pull it back to where it was, and oftentimes is the cause of why we're at where we're at now.
Yeah. For me, and what we're dealing with today is what I call modeling the way. I always have to model the behaviors that I expect of my police officers. And I know some people may think that that's just lip service, but big in my mind and heart is how we treat people. We've set forth a very simple mission statement that says that we're going to proactively protect our community while treating everyone we come into contact with professionalism, dignity, and respect. And those things are spoken about every day by me and my command staff. It's on walls. We've branded it. And as trivial as that may sound, that is what's required today in order to change culture. Peter Drucker says, policy or culturally policy for breakfast, right? Well, that's true. If you're not, the way you change culture is, to me, is leaders out front modeling the behavior that they expect from their troops. The obstacles, sometimes people will either self-select and move on out, like Daniel was talking about, retire and throw rocks from the outside, or they're acquiesce to the mission, and that's what's required today.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine Fontana, I hope I said that right. Follow your hearts. Yes. Follow your hearts. Thank you for that comment there, Kathy. And Thaw Theory on Facebook says, hi from Cambodia. All right. We got some viewers in Cambodia. Thank you for joining us. Chief Harris, did you want to add to that conversation there?
Yeah, it's just very brief. And for me, when you're talking about barriers, there are so many that we could do probably a year's worth of podcasts on all of what happened to the three people on the screen over the course of their careers. But for me, I think the challenge is for us in our current position is how we started. As we came up in law enforcement, that is when we started to really understand the need for community policing. And it's gone by many names, right? Community-oriented policing and many different types of programs or philosophies and so on. But it was being made up as we were moving through it, right? We were trying to figure it out as we were going along. And I come from a home that was as community-based and color line free as you could get with the upbringing that I had. So when I got into this profession and I started seeing the need to have the community-based policing and understanding how the police were doing what they were doing and what changes I saw needed to be made even in my early development, those are the challenges, understanding it, developing your mind through it. Daniel talked about, some of the older cats wanting to keep it going back the other way, and younger cats not maybe understanding where he is. That is definitely an ongoing challenge as we are still in the midst of trying to make the transition. back in the days when we had a lot of the nonsense, it was easy. The people that were working in police work knew exactly that was what it was going to be. And now you've got all these change agents who see it for what it can be, and we're in this business to try to make those changes. And it's different depending on where you are, what part of the country you might be in, what part of the state you might be in. There's a lot of variables. But I think those are the biggest obstacles. Is really we're in the midst of trying to make the change. We're not on either side of it.
Right.
Do you
And
all
we're
find that? Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was just going to say, we're in the midst of a whole bunch of different change right now. What's going on, and with the protests that our country's been seeing, and COVID changes and things like that. So, how's that challenge been in your individual departments? The challenges there with COVID, with protests. I don't know what. Did you guys have much protesting there in San Gabriel there, Chief?
We didn't have as much of the protests regarding this issue in our town, but because there's so many police departments in our area, in our mutual aid area, we had to assist other cities that had a lot of protests. The Los Angeles Police Department, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Pasadena is a direct neighbor to the north of us. They had a lot of the protest issues. And so we did a lot of the assisting in that endeavor. So there were some specific challenges to that, but as an area, we had to deal with it, not specifically in the city of San Gabriel. The city of San Gabriel is predominantly Asian, with a large degree of Latinos, and then a really small enclave of what we would consider other. But we did have to spend a lot of time in the neighboring cities dealing with those issues.
Yeah, yeah. How was the protest in Texas there in Carrollton?
Like I mentioned earlier, we're a suburb of Dallas. So Dallas had protests. We had protests here in Carrollton as well. Our experience was we met our people exercising their rights where they were. We went out and we facilitated their ability to protest. In my opinion, it's a good thing for people to get out, have tough conversations. I think that we learned on both sides because of the protests that we had in our town. We extended that conversation in several what we called listening sessions, where we went out and all we did was wanted to hear what the community had to tell us. Now it was difficult, right? But we had some really meaningful conversations because of it. COVID is keeping our department in flux as well. Right now in Texas, it's a hot spot. About 87% of the beds are full in Texas. In Dallas, 93% of our ICU beds are taken. The positivity rate in Carrollton or in Texas, in the North Texas area, is at about 12%. The World Health Organization wants positivity rates to be around 5%. We're at 12%. And so that's having an effect on our police department with those who've been quarantined and officers. We're all fatigued, but officers are extremely fatigued right now here. So propping them up, caring for their mental illness and wellness is paramount. And it's just a difficult time.
Yeah, it is. In Sacramento, being in the state capital, I know you had a bunch of stuff going on up there, sir.
Yeah, we're as you just said, we're the capital of California, so we have multiple protests every day, all year round, for all different number of things. But we've had many protests on this topic. We've also had the challenge of what I would call protesters, and then people that I wouldn't call protesters, the ones that show up in bulletproof vests, helmets, sticks. We just had that yesterday. I won't even name their names to give them credit for it, but they were fighting each other physically yesterday in Sacramento. So it's been a long couple months. The officers are tired and their shifts being switched around, a lot of overtime, being assaulted. A lot of those other type of non-protesters often carry rocks in their backpacks, strategically put rocks around, carry bottles with some sort of liquid to spray on officers. So it's been challenging times for the officers on the street, but I think they've handled it very well in the sense that we haven't had any buildings burnt, nobody seriously injured, nobody killed. So it's gone as well as could be expected, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know being part of the conversation, I've seen that you've been part of that. I got a little picture there. You kneeling there. What was that situation here about?
Well, actually, I got that idea from Camden, New Jersey. I saw an article where the police marched with the public, and this was early on after the George Floyd protests, like first week or so. So I called a couple of about 4 of the community leaders that I work with all the time, and I sent them a picture of that article, and I said, why can't we do this? And so we did that like literally 4 days later. So that march was actually in the neighborhood I grew up in, and went from the community center I hung out with as a kid to the second oldest church, Baptist church in Sacramento. And so that march was actually mine and about 4 other community leaders march that we put together. It had several hundred people attend. And it's interesting because there was a lot of disagreement and conflict over that picture, actually. And we said we were going to kneel that was at the beginning of it. And so there was a lot of pushback, both from certain community groups and certain police groups, including in my own department. But what I explained to them is the reason why we're doing it or the conflict is the reason why we're doing it. If it wasn't meaningful, there wouldn't be any conflict. And I teach a class on history, about a 7 or 8 hour class on the history that none of us learned. And it's interesting to note that in World War II, there was a double V campaign by the Black community and the Black newspapers. And the double V meant V for victory abroad, but also V for victory for African Americans to have victory during Jim Crow and to have equal rights. And the conflict that African Americans had during World War II and after about being patriotic, but and going to war, but also not being happy or satisfied with the way we were treated in this country. And then fast forward to modern day times, you have the conflict with Kaepernick kneeling, where he wasn't being unpatriotic. He's saying he wants things different. Mm-hmm. And so same thing with when we kneeled that day, you can still see that same conflict of patriotism, where people say that's against the flag, versus wanting things to change. You can be both. And too many times we're polarized right now.
Yep, I agree. And VVV again says, with everything going on, anti-police activity, defunding the police, etc., as leaders, how do you keep your officers, staff in good spirits to not let them get discouraged? Anybody jump in there?
For me, I remind them of their oath. I tell people that I feel that people come to this profession, even though Daniel says he was trying to get $5 more, he still had it in his heart to come do this job. And when times are difficult for us, what I keep reminding them is of their oath, that they were called to this appointed place to do this job, and this job is to serve their fellow man. And I know it's tough and it's hard, but we wouldn't do it if it were easy. And that's my message to my troops.
All right. What do you think about?
Like
Chief
Chief Miller.
Harris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like Chief Miller, I think reminding the folks of why we're here and what we represent. It can't start on the day that we have a problem. That has to start way in advance. We've got to front load that mentality. And make sure that we're working through those issues internally, and then expressing those views externally. When you've got the community on your side, when you're doing the things that you need to communicate with the people you serve, I think that makes that transition a little bit better, a little bit easier. And so in our house, we kept reminding people of why we were there, but we had also started to front load the things that built us credit within our community. And so we were out engaging with the community in situations where the police had never done that in our area. And that was what helped to get us over the hump, was they understood we would go the distance to interact and engage with our folks. And that seemed to work really, really well in our shop and the neighboring shops.
Absolutely.
Kind of piggybacking off of everything that's been said in regards to, I guess, leadership and sometimes the kickback. How are you all now navigating leadership and influence in your department in this, with reforms or defund, whatever that looks like? How are you navigating kind of pulling the troops along and kind of, motivating them, but also preparing them for, hey, these changes may come and this is why we need them, or this is why we don't need them? How are you all taking that stance now?
Yeah, I think that's a daily something that needs to be fed or cared for daily, and so I kind of do it in two ways. One is just straight honesty, which is, we oftentimes say now that we're in unprecedented times, but we're really not. These protests, these sort of things of unrest have happened in our country for hundreds of years. And because we haven't addressed the root or the cause of them, we continue to see them. And so I tell them this, and I give them proof that this has happened before. And I say, we're either going to get to the root and do something about it this time, or we're going to continue to see this, which means we got to change, and we got to be the lead of that change as law enforcement officers. The second half of that is I point out and I share not only with them, but the department wide and often with the community, some of the things that they do every single day. This community and every one of our communities absolutely 100% needs police officers. And they do some incredible things every single day that saves people's lives, makes a difference in people's lives. And so I just remind them, like, as tough as it is right now, look what happened today. What would have happened if you weren't there? And look how you changed this young man or this young girl's life by what you did. And it's not always in a violent situation. Sometimes it's just mentoring or those other things. And so those two things put together, the need for us to change and lead change, not just in law enforcement, but in our community as well. And then also reminding them why we're here and the need that our community has of them.
Yeah, it's the same for us. I tell my troops that we better get engaged and be part of the solution, because if we sit back and get all swole up because the legislature is going to change the law, we're going to be behind the eight ball. So let's get on the forefront. Let's look at ourselves critically. I'm part of a group of chiefs here in North Texas that we're looking at things that we can do better as a profession, and actually going to take those to Austin. Our legislature meets every 2 years in Texas, and we're right on the cusp of that legislative session opening up in the spring. And so we're going to be proposing changes ourselves. So I think we can't be in a posture where we're just going to sit back and wait to see what's coming down the pipe. We have to be proactive.
I think along with that, we have to make sure we're communicating with our folks what it is, the expectation, right? Communicate the expectation. And down in this part of the state, that defund movement was heard loud and clear. It was resonating. But one of the things we had to do was make sure as we show up to go to work and do all these things every day, that we're not bifurcated in the way that we're approaching this. So as a chief, what we need to do is really engage with those unions, all of the unions that are the management union, the police associations, and those folks. And we're talking to them on a regular basis, including them in the meetings that we're doing, and engaging their membership to help come up with ideas so they feel the buy-in. Unfortunately, too many times in paramilitary organizations, everything seems to come from the top down, and everybody has to just do what they're told. And I get that there's a time that needs to happen. But we also need to be engaging with the folks as they bring ideas up, as the people who are on the front lines of this, and trying to keep them engaged so that they feel they have a voice. So there's a third voice that needs to be heard here. So there's administration, clearly the political arm of what we're doing, certainly the members of the community who are, in my opinion, most important. But then there are those other people who are faced with this on the front line who oftentimes feel that they're not heard. We need to raise their voice so that they can be included in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Melissa on YouTube says, "You the man, Chief Harris. Hi from Ontario, California." So, all right.
Thank you
for joining us on YouTube. And Kathy again says on Facebook, "Praying for you all daily." All right. Thank you for that. We appreciate you. So we're talking about, coming up through the ranks and mentorship. And now that you guys have all reached, the pinnacle of your careers there, do you guys see the same mentoring from yourselves with people behind you? Are you doing the same sort of mentoring, making sure people are being trained up, having the tools that they need to promote, and whether it's with your department or elsewhere, are you guys doing the same sort of things?
Here in my shop, we do. I'll take the lead on this one, if you don't mind, guys. But one of the things that we needed to do was make sure mentoring was important to everyone, because it wasn't that when I got here. I had the opportunity, like my colleagues here to have some good mentors as I came up, and I understood the mentoring process for what it should be. And when we started to implement that, we had to find ways to make people buy in. So in some cases, we forced it through the evaluation process, right? When we have suggestions of what you need to do over the next evaluation period, mentoring is always a piece of it. Something in the shape of you need to first be a mentor to someone, and second, you need to have a mentor, and then document in your next evaluation period what you did as far as personal and personnel or career development. And it's been very successful for us because it gets people to understand the importance of that mentoring. So we're always talking about it. The more, I guess, unofficial you make it, in my opinion, just my experience, the more we leave it open to some folks that may be a little bit naive as to how it works, being on the cusp of being where they need to get, but not engaged. So as we mandate some of these things in the participation, those who really want to do it will do it. Those who really don't. But from the base of it, we are making the opportunity for everyone to be engaged in that. And as they grow up and become supervisors and all those other things, they kind of take that message and move it forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
awesome. We have a culture of mentorship. We start, I think police chiefs are remiss if we're not training the people to take our spots. And so what we start is when we hire you, we assign you a mentor who's not a training officer. And then as you come up the ranks, we make sure that it seems simple, but we step people up. If a sergeant's at SWAT training or on vacation, we step senior officers up, and we'll step sergeants up into commanders' roles, and they have to come to chiefs meetings, and this goes all the way up the chain. Along with that, we make sure that we're training our folks. To answer your question, we'll invest in a lower ranked officer, a sergeant going to commander school, or so maybe someone took the sergeant's test and they're not gonna get promoted. We still put them and make sure they go to new sergeant school, because what we want to do is inspire them to keep moving forward. We have to build the next leader of our organizations, or especially now it's more critical than ever. So it's a big deal.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that piece right there. Chief Hahn.
Yeah, I'd say same thing. The mentoring that goes on now versus when I came on is a lot better. And so very happy about that. But there's always new ways. We're always seeking new ways to get people prepared. Like I said, we have a very young department. So the rules that applied when I was coming up don't apply anymore, 5 or 6 years in each rank. We got people that are 2 years in a rank before if they are promising, they get promoted again. So we do some of the same things that Derek and Gene talked about. We have acting positions. So if you're a sergeant, you have long-term acting roles as lieutenants, and same with every rank to get people prepared, because we don't have the luxury anymore of not helping people get prepared faster, because again, we have a young department. And, it's good that we have a young department. People bring in new ideas and hopefully get us to a new place.
All right. Love it. Love it. So as we move on, we talked about, some of the professional and stuff like that. So let's get more personal. I talked to you about each of you guys as individuals. And first, let's get to you here, Chief Harris.
Everybody keeping their professional face. You notice they got a little nervous in their eyes.
We're not going to get too personal.
They got nervous. Yeah, we was Googling. I went to the dark web and I found some shit.
I do want the viewers to know a little bit about you, in the communities that you serve. So, Chief Harris, you said you came from elsewhere, but, you're pretty involved in your community. I know it's this time of year that we're all giving. I got this picture for you of you doing some food bank work here. It's that time of year here at Thanksgiving. What was that about?
In our town, there are a lot of efforts that are put forward to help the members of the community that come from philanthropic entities and other people around our city. I've made it clear that if through the promotional process for our guys, especially the younger guys, as Daniel was talking about, that community engagement is a pillar of the promotional process. You can be very smart, you can have all those other things, but if you're not engaged in the community, you're going to be much less competitive. Yep. But in order to set that tone, I've also got to be out there sometimes on the front lines doing those kind of things. And though I can't get out and work patrol and do those kind of things anymore with all that we have to do, when the community engagement piece provides an opportunity to get out there and do what's right, providing those people, those less fortunate, some food, standing out there and representing the organization in all that we expect of our folks. I have to do that, and I expect that of all the command staff and everybody down the road, including those unions and et cetera. So we have those discussions. And that picture was from a very recent food drive that we had that fed a lot of hungry families. And we get out there and we load them up. We gave some free backpacks and things like that. And the idea is to just engage with these folks so they see us have many other opportunities to see us other than on a traffic stop or if we're called to their home, their neighbor's home, et cetera. So it was a very fruitful experience among all the others that we do. Very, very integrated into the community in our city.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got another one here that shows, back when our schools were open, looks like you were giving a speech at a graduation here at one of your local high schools there. What's that about here?
Yeah, that was right at the beginning of when COVID was really getting to us and starting to create all the problems that it's been creating. And we have made every officer in our department, every single officer, including me, a school resource officer. Everybody has to report to the schools at least once a week if you're not a field personnel. Once a week if you're field personnel, at least twice a month if you're administrative personnel, and go interact with the schools, interact with folks. And this was an opportunity at an event that they had there for me to stand up and do my part with the high school, Gabrielino High School. And it was really good. We had that picture right there is taken with a drone. So it was flying up and down and flying all around, and the kids were all in awe of it and all that. I don't think they heard much of what I said, but they saw me. So we at least scratched that itch. But those are the things that we need to stay engaged in. So that engagement with the schools has been very fruitful for us. Every officer is the school resource officer in our shop.
All right. Lynn Taylor on Facebook says, yes, set the standard of engaging the community. That's awesome. I agree. Kathy on Facebook says, beautiful in blue indeed. We appreciate that. And for the aha or the awe moment of our broadcast, we got this one here for you. Chief Miller.
Wow.
That's engaging one of your future taxpayers there.
Yeah.
Do you remember that photo? What's that about?
Actually, I do remember that photo. That photo was taken at an event that we called Unidos. Unidos is a community engagement initiative that we have to partner with our Hispanic community. Carrollton is about 38% Hispanic, and it's very important to us that we engage with them. We had issues, as you can imagine, several years ago with the Hispanic community feeling alienated. We had an entire patrol beat in our town that there was absolutely zero crime, and all the patrol beats around it had normal levels of crime. And we looked into it, and basically the community was afraid to call us and engage with us. So I've got some amazing police officers who went into the community, and we just had simple conversations. We would meet, we would eat together. Like Gene was talking about, community engagement in my department is everyone's job. I have a community engagement unit, but if you localize it to a unit, the other cops won't do it. So we have a culture of community engagement. And what that picture was me actually holding the child of one of the people there. And I'll tell you what, if I could just add to that, when we started this, the Hispanic community was afraid to come to the police department. So we had to have that at a rec center. And I'm happy to say now, 3 years later, the community was like, why can't we come to the police department? So we've had some meetings here at the police department. It seems small, but it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that.
Small steps that they led somewhere.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, did you help change diapers?
You know what? You may not know it, but I can change diapers, man. I want to tell you what I can do that. I can give classes too. If you want to do another podcast, I can give you some instructions on it.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
No, yeah.
No more diapers for me.
You gotta be a servant leader, Daniel. Come on, man.
Yeah,
Campers, get ready, Dale.
yeah, for real. And Chief Hahn,
Maybe something y'all should talk about.
yeah, right. And Chief Hahn, interesting story. Right now is November, is National Adoption Month. So I pulled this here. What is this picture, if you don't mind telling the audience about this?
That's my family. So I was given up for adoption at birth, and my mom and dad adopted me at 3 months old, saved my life. So, yeah, November is National Adoption Month. Unfortunately, my dad died when I was 5, so I was really predominantly raised by my mom in Oak Park neighborhood here in Sacramento. And so she literally, and I've believed it since a young age, she saved my life. So if I had grown up bouncing around in foster home to foster home, things would have been a lot tougher. So I completely respect and honor all people who choose to adopt children. An interesting story, when she was going through the adoption process for me, she was discouraged by many of the social workers or workers that are in that process. So one told her, why does she want to adopt a boy? Because the boy will keep her last name instead of getting married and change the name. They said, why did she want to adopt a Black child? Most people want to adopt blonde-haired white girls. And so her response was just, you don't know who I am. And so there's a lot of arguments, even when I was growing up, that white families shouldn't adopt Black children, or other race families shouldn't adopt other race children. The thing that children need, and that I needed, regardless of what race people were, is a loving family. Mm-hmm. You know, they often talk about foster kids age out of foster care. In all of our systems, whatever the worst number is, foster children usually own those numbers. So there's an overabundance of foster kids in the criminal justice system. There's an overabundance of foster kids that don't graduate from high school, don't go to college, and the list just goes on and on. You don't age out of a family. And so that's the best thing anybody can do, and it saved my life when my mom chose to adopt me. So yeah, that's my mom. That's my mama.
Yes. Lynn Taylor on Facebook says, what a blessing, Chief Hahn. Look at you now. Yes, look at you now. And I was fortunate that my mom passed away about 3 months after I was sworn back in to Sacramento, but she was there at the swearing in. I stood with her, hugging her while I was actually sworn in. She stood right by my side with my arm around her. So that's amazing. I'm very, very blessed for that. That's amazing. And Bev19916 on Twitch says, thank you, Chief Hahn, for your hard work and innovation here in Sacramento. Be the difference. Be the difference. That's one of your sayings up there in Sacramento. What's that slogan about? Oh, it's just exactly what it says. I mean, we all have the ability to be the difference, and we have to do it. We got to be the difference, else we're going to stay the same. Absolutely. Appreciate that story. Have you gotten a chance, or did you ever have the inclination to want to look for your bio parents? Yes, I've found all of them. So my biological mother passed away before I found them found her in my mid-20s. But my biological father's family all lives in Oakland. So I'm still have a really good, close relationship with all of them to this day. Unfortunately, my dad died about 14 years ago, but I had about 15 years with him before he passed. That's great. Great story there. Great story. And Bobo Jackson on Facebook says, thank you, Chiefs, for your dedication and desire to do this job and be leaders in this profession, especially in our current times. Says, I'm on a job in Michigan, 11 years going. Question, how important do you, if any of you, think the idea of 21st century policing model is in our nation? How important do you think that 21st century policing model is? Anybody jump in there?
I think it's important, especially the first pillar that talks about building and maintaining trust and legitimacy. That's what we all do, is what we're all doing in all of our initiatives, community engagement. It's without it, we're lost. I think what people miss about that first pillar, though, is that it talks about building trust and legitimacy, much to what Gene said earlier, building trust and legitimacy inside the organization as well as outside the organization. So, for example, in Carrollton, we talk about treating people with professionalism, dignity, and respect. Well, that's important that we're treating people with professionalism, dignity, and respect inside of the organization as well. So I think that some of the principles that are outlined in that document are real good. I think that's what we need to be going. Yeah, and for those that don't know out there what that is, that was a conference that was brought together by the Obama administration with a bunch of chiefs and administrators, and came up with these
pillars and policies for the 21st century policing that a lot of different departments are adopting. So that's what that is.
I don't think it could have been said any more than,
Can
I don't
I
think it could have been said any better than Derek said it. But I think it's also represented in the shirt that Daniel's wearing. All of the pillars are going to have difficulty. We're going to have difficulty with the pillars if we don't first instill that trust and take that as our mantra for moving forward. We have to have the trust of the people that we serve, and they certainly have to have some trust in us. We have to have some trust in them that we can work together in solving a lot of these problems. I think that shirt is absolutely apropos, and that sets the tone as far as I'm concerned with the question that was asked. And we need to represent that in what we wear, as you see on this podcast, and certainly in the way that we talk and the way that we engage with our folks that we serve and the people that we work with. So it's a huge deal.
Absolutely. Show off that shirt for everybody there, Chief Hahn. There you go.
Trust.
Yeah, he got that chest puffing out that chest too. Yeah. Still keeping it shape there.
Working out.
Hey, can I give them shirts?
Yes, of course, I'll send you one.
Triple X because of all that barbecue.
Oh man, I tell you. So we're talking about African American issues. We are all African American and minorities. We all have different communities that we serve, but being African Americans, we kind of take that to heart because that's what we are. How did these events that have been portrayed out recently in the media and out there, the George Floyd, the Breonna Taylor, the ones in Georgia, how do those affect your individual departments and how are you guys moving forward with that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. I mentioned earlier I teach a class that I've been researching for 2 to 3 years. And the reason I do that, these protests that we've had more recently reinforce the reason I do that is, you'd probably be amazed at how many letters, emails, for sure social media posts I get that talk about things like, we don't have these racial issues because we're in California. We were entered as a free state, so therefore slavery is not an issue, and all these things. I get comments like, the only reason from people I don't know, the only reason I'm chief is because I'm Black. So I think the first step to even doing like the 21st century question that you asked a minute ago is in the details, and how do we do that? And the first step to me is we got to know our history. If you don't think anything's wrong and the people out in our streets are just protesting because they just want to make everything a Black or brown issue, and that they're just whining and just work hard and you can achieve whatever you want and you've always been able to do that, then we're never going to make this better. We have to know the truth, and we are not taught our history in our schools, not in college, not in high school. And so that's one of the reasons why I do that. And the things that all three of us have gone through, other people don't have to go through. And the people on the street are getting less and less patient. The protesters today are talking about the same exact things that the protesters were in the late 1800s and early 1900s. They're talking about the same issues, the Watts riots, the Zoot Suit riots, the riots in Atlanta, and all these other riots and protests that we've had across our country. They're all talking about the same things we're talking about today. And so we have to know what those are. We have to know how we got to where we're at if we ever expect to be able to fix it. And I completely agree with the 21st century policing models, but the details behind that, how we get there, are very important. And each department in each city has to figure that out.
Yep. Go ahead, Gene.
The details are important, like Daniel's talking about. And I think that we have to start embracing that through the conversation. The downside, and there's always a flip side, and I respect what's being said, but there are times when we become paralyzed. We need to know what our history is, but then we need to start establishing that future look and have that future thinking part where we don't let it paralyze us. And I think in a lot of our communities, we have that happen. In San Gabriel, like I told you, we're 60-something odd percent Asian, of the 30-something percent Latino. And then there's a small enclave of other. So even with regard to the folks that are working there, we don't engage in the issues in the Black community as much. But as the chief of an organization where people aren't engaging in that as much, there's a naivete or there's some ignorance to what goes on in the Black community, et cetera. So we need to know that, because we may encounter those people in a lot of the extra patrol things that we're doing with the other cities, et cetera. And our guys don't have some of the history behind it that maybe some of the other jurisdictions have. So it's very important to learn the history, not only of your own history, but the history of others, and make sure that we're well informed about a lot of things, but that we take the active step, the proactive step, not to let it paralyze us in the learning process, not to let it be a barrier to us accepting those future points from others among us, so that we can make some really good, solid opinions and judgments based on informed information. And so I think that's a lot of times it's where the information is coming from, how it's being delivered, that creates the negativity. We've got to get a handle on how we're going to communicate that and make sure everybody's getting the message.
Yep.
If I could just add on to that, I want to say I have to remind my cops of their perceptions of things, and tell them that their perceptions are through the lens of a trained police officer who's going from call to call to call in the heat, wearing a vest. Maybe it's their 15th, 16th call of the day, and there's time for them to get off work. But when they're answering that call, the person who they're answering the call with, it may be the first time that they've experienced anything with the police officers. And their experiences are based on how they grew up. Some people, like how we grew up, I can tell you that my grandmother, who's no longer with us, couldn't vote until she was 46 years old. Imagine that. You couldn't vote until you were 46 years old. And so the lens which we look through is a lot different. And so, yeah, it's a real thing when you walk up to that traffic stop and someone's nervous and shaking. This might not be because they're trying to hide something. It may be because they're scared to death of you because of the way they were brought up. So it's about understanding people's experiences. And the more we talk about the history of this country, and I tell people all the time, I know this is probably a controversial statement. People don't want to say law enforcement is systemically racist. I'm going to say the United States is systemically racist. And those are the things that we have to talk about. And those are the things that we have to preach to these young cops. My cops, just like all these guys, cops here, man, I guarantee you, tell me if I'm wrong. Your 20-something-year-old cops are growing up in schools that look like the UN. They're growing up with Black and Asian. Yep. And so their perspectives are different today than ours are. I'm old. Daniel's older than I am. And he but we grew up different, but we have to talk about it. We have to know our history, and we need to keep it front of mind as we make decisions.
Yeah. Bobo Jackson on Facebook says, Chief Miller, you knocked the first pillar out of the park with the Hispanic community in your area. Great work, all of you. Thank you. And thank you for that comment, Mr. Jackson. And Roberta Robertson on Facebook says, historical backgrounds and education is desperately needed in our communities. Thank you for your committee and to educate Chief Hahn. Thank you for that, Roberta. And Lynn Taylor says, it's magnificent to see all of you serving our communities. You're representing well. I'm speaking from this setting and all who will view this. We thank each of you. You are making a difference. Stay with it and remain encouraged. And we are. We appreciate you. All right. The last question before we get out of here. What do you guys think is your responsibility to the African-American communities, being African-Americans yourself, being chiefs? You have a responsibility to get more officers in the department, to get more transparency, more trust within African-American communities. What do you believe that your responsibility is to the African-American community? Anyone jump in there? Go ahead, Chief Hahn.
I'll go first. First, I want to say you had asked a personal question earlier, and I just want everybody to know that as the nation, that's the Raider Nation, we have room for more people. We're whooping up on the Chiefs right now. They just tied it up, but yeah, there you go. So we still got room. We got some. We still got open seats on the bus if they want to jump on.
Trade that Niners deal. Trade that Niners hat. Come on over, bro.
It ain't happening today.
Come on over to that nation. Okay, let me get myself together.
Lakers all day.
They're okay. In terms of obligation to the Black community, I mean, To a certain extent, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Black community, besides my mom, raised me. And I think as a no matter what anybody wants to say, the first thing people typically see is race. So when they see me, they don't see me as a chief, they see me as a Black chief. Mm-hmm. And I do think I have obligation to the entire community, but part of that obligation is making things better for everybody, specifically the Black, the brown communities that are a lot of these protests are about and have been about for centuries. And so how do we do that? One is through education, one is through hiring, but I don't want to hire for diversity just for diversity's sake. I want to hire good people. I want to create an environment where good people from all races, all experiences want to be on the police department. To me, that's the solution, not just go out and hire Black people for Black people's sake, because there'll be some bad Black officers too. So I want to make sure that right now in certain communities, like the Black community, people don't want to be police officers. So we have to change that in order to get good people. Like I didn't want to be a police officer. So we need to recruit people like me and get them into, because I believe once we get them in our walls, we got them. We can show them that they can achieve what they want to achieve in that uniform. But yeah, I absolutely feel an obligation to the Black community along with the entire community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the responsibility I think is huge. Daniel, you encapsulated it. Well said, my brother. For me, there's some elements to it that are crucial. So I've been told a couple of times when I run into people or speak in certain circles, he was so articulate, or he spoke so well. And so my answer is, what did you expect?
Credit to your race.
Right. Microaggressions 101. Here we go.
What did you expect? And so for me, the responsibility is to set the example, to learn to set the example, so that becomes the exception and not the rule with how people see it from the get-go. And my role is to bring all people along, Black, white, Puerto Rican, or Asian, A to 80, blind, crippled, and crazy. We should bring everybody along to get where we need to get. And that's just the way that we need to do things. But in my eyes, the responsibility is to make sure you're representing it. You as an individual, as a chief, as a leader, all of us on the screen, that we are representing that. And if we do that, we fulfill that part of our responsibility. It's each one teach one, right? We'll get the next guy to do that, the next gal to do that, the next person to send that message out, so that becomes a thing of the past.
Right. I can't add to that. The only thing I could say is our obligation is to make it better. Our obligation is to make sure, like Daniel said, that we're hiring the right people for the job, that our words are consistent with our deeds, and that all else we're doing, we're trying to build and maintain trust, because we're all called to do this job to make our society better. And we need one another. And none of us got into this job. I don't know, no one had gotten into this job who wanted to do harm. And so we want to make it better. Just like the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, are making it better.
Man.
And we'll get that 6th Super Bowl probably next year.
Maybe the year after.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
America's team.
No bueno.
Oh my.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I had to throw that one on there for you, Chief. But before we get out of here, let's get some closing thoughts by each of you, and then we'll go from there on our way out. So go ahead, since you had the floor already with the America's team. Go ahead, Chief Miller. Closing thoughts on the way out.
I just want to tell people, you can do anything that you set your mind to. I'm a kid that grew up on the west side of Fort Worth who knew he wanted to do a job, but had some personal obstacles. I didn't cover it, but I've got dyslexia, and so to get to where I'm gotten is to me a blessing. But I think it came through determination and hard work. And in order to make this world a better place, I think you need to put yourself out there. I think you need to not let people tell you you can't do it, or you're not qualified. And I think you should just go for it, man. And that's what I want to tell people. I want to tell young people, young African American people, that this job is a noble profession that is worthwhile. And if you set your mind to it, you can sit in the chair that I'm sitting in today. And I hope by that time I'll be old, but I hope people do it, man. That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Chief Hahn, closing thoughts on the way out.
Yeah, I'll just say, I thought you told us we weren't supposed to drink or anything before we came on here today. Clearly, Derek he's drinking. There's something special in that cup.
Yeah, hot
Talking
toddies, hot
about
toddies.
the Cowboys
I
going to the
poured
Super
from the
Bowl
red
even
cup
next year.
into that cup before we went
Yeah,
live.
exactly. Yes. There's a red cup sitting in there somewhere.
He meant they're buying tickets to the Super Bowl. That's what.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll call y'all.
No, I in closing, I just want to say that, we have far too much division in this country, and we have a long ways to go. This is a great, great country, but we can be and need to be much better. And the only way to do that is together. And so we don't always have to agree, but we have to move forward together. This dividing, attacking each other when we disagree. We've got to find ways to get better so everybody gets better, not just a select few. And the only way to do that is together. And I know here in Sacramento, the police department I'm a member of and many people in this community are. And I would just say, for those that don't believe that, just watch us. The only way to get better is together.
Absolutely. And Chief Harris, closing thoughts on the way out.
Well, first, it's been a pleasure being in the company of people like you, saying the things and doing the things that you're doing. It's kind of a blessing to just be invited to this show. So thank you very much. I think effort and value would be my message to anybody out there. Let's put the effort to making the changes that need to be made. Let's certainly bring the value to everything that we're doing. If we're doing those things and shooting our best shot at being the best us, controlling the things that we have absolute control over, that's the baseline. And then reaching out together to do all the things that my friends here have said and making it better. So let's all be a part of the change, get rid of the division, and let's work together to get where we need to get.
All right. Couldn't have said anything better than that. I appreciate you. All right. I thank everybody for joining us here on the Black and Blue podcast with these great chiefs. Our leadership sessions here with Chief Hahn of Sacramento, California Police Department, Chief Gene Harris of the San Gabriel, California Police Department, and Chief Derek Miller of the Carrollton, Texas Police Department. We appreciate you guys. Be sure to check us out next week. Same black time, same black channel. For my co-host Liz, I'm Dale, and we out.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.